ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. We are looking into the fifth Prashna, the fifth query of the Prasnopanishad. Before we go to the fifth query, I would like to touch upon a different aspect that is given here, because this fifth query is about the Omkara. And we know we dealt with this Omkara in a few different ways. One is that from the yoga point of view, we have seen the vibrations of Aum and then how they can go, and then from the point of view of Kundalini, etc., how Aum is supposed to take the Kundalini energy from the lower chakras to the lower centers to the higher centers or the upper centers. The lower centers are supposed to be the bondage of centers of bondage. Upper centers are the centers of freedom. So therefore, it is going from bondage to freedom, and that's what is the spiritual significance or yogic significance of the Om that we have seen at the very individual level. Similarly, we also have seen about this Om from the Mandukya Upanishad point of view, and that's what is Avasatraya Viveka, that three different states of existence. And Mandukya Upanishad gives us, the Rishi gives us idea of Aum as the wakeful dream and deep sleep state. It looks more or less like it is a representative kind of a thing. That means basically it is uh, identifying this idea of your three states of existence by Aum, and the fourth state is the silence that follows, and which is supposed to be the Turiya sthiti. This is also we have seen. And third important aspect is that we also know from the point of view of yoga, that is that all the verbal mind and pictorial mind, when we take it, the whole yoga is to see that how we can transcend the mind. Somebody was saying that it is the silence of the mind is not important. No, the idea of silence of the mind in yoga is to see that how we can transcend the mind, intellect, the whole gamut of chitta that is there, manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, all that four antakaras, we try to transcend. And that is the idea of chitta vritti nirodha, that's the idea of silence in the mind. So, or a state which is when the mind is silent and then going beyond. Mind also is an activity, so therefore we transcend that activity. Mind is also therefore part of what is called as doer, the doing aspect of it. Whereas when we have to go to the being, that we transcend the mind, that is the idea of silence of the mind. But literally, please, a lot of people take the silence of the mind. We can't silence the mind, therefore, that this yoga is utopian concept. It is not like that. The idea is that we can, there are moments where we transcend the um, action called as activity called as mind, and then go beyond. That's what is chittavritti nirodha. And there, verbal mind, when we take it, all the pictorial mind is converted to verbal mind, because that verbal mind is the one which transacts, and the verbal mind, beginning and end of all the sound vibrations are akara to makara, bridged by ukara. So therefore, by chanting aum, we take it will take us to silence. That's another concept that we worked out. There are all the practical things that we can work out in the form of journey that we make. So the Vedanta, therefore, is essentially to see that how we can experience, how transcendent. For that experience, whatever the explanation that you give, that satisfies you at that point of time, it is wonderful. There is nothing like only this way or only that way. So therefore, several ways that Omkara has been given. and the form of Jagrata, Swapna, Sushupti, etc., etc. Omkara has been described about that. The Prashnopanishad comes up from a different angle in trying to deal with this Omkara, and that's very interesting. And it's not just only in the Prashnopanishad that you have. Of course, a Prashnopanishad is something which has come much earlier. After that, Bhagavad Gita has come. But then we can get this concept in Bhagavad Gita in the 8th chapter, beginning shlokas with Arjuna asking two shlokas to Krishna, and then Krishna replying in two more shlokas, will give us some another very important angle towards this particular Om. There, the mention of Om is not there, but without giving the mention of Om, that Krishna, Arjuna is asking that. And it's very interesting, very important kind of a observation that Arjuna has about the human being. Now, Jagrata, Swapna, Sushupti will seem to be the states that we are going through, directly connected with our experience. And another connected experience, connected with the experience kind of a concept is the idea that Arjuna asked to Krishna, Kim tad Brahma, kim adhyatmam, kim karma purushottama, adhibhutam cha kim proktam, adidaivam kimuchyate, adiyajnah katham kotra, dehesmin madhusudana, prayana kale cha katham, jneyosi niyatatmabhihi. Here he gives what is that Brahman that you are talking about? Kim tad Brahma and Kim Adhyatmam. What is this Adhyatma? Kim Karma Purushottama. The karma that we are doing, what is it? Adhibhutam cha Kim Proktam. What do you mean by Adhibhutam? And Adhidaivam Kimuchyate. What is the idea of Adhidaiva? Adhiyajna Katham Kotra. What is Adhiyajna? Dehesmin Madhusudana, in this body, hey Madhusudana, Prayana Kale Chakatham, Jneyosi Niyatatmavihi. So now you see that Adhibhutam, Adhidaivam, uh, and Adhyatmam, and also Adhiyajna. These are the things that Arjuna is asking Krishna. In fact, when in the beginning, that when you look at this, the way that Arjuna asking these questions in the battlefield, he is asking Krishna, you really get irritated because that it's in the war field that they are standing, and then Krishna is trying to convince him to go to fight the war, and then removing his um, indecisiveness that is Arjuna is facing. So suddenly he brings about Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhyatma. It looks very superfluous in the sense that at an emergency period where everybody is waiting for the war, you are suddenly raising some philosophical question. This we can discuss anytime. You don't have to discuss at this point of time this particular question that Arjuna is asking. So, almost this is the kind of view one might get. In fact, I also was somebody who thought like that in the beginning, that is it not superfluous that in the warfield that he's discussing about that? In fact, if I were to be in the place of Krishna, I was thinking that, oh Arjuna, shut up now for now, so that let's fight the war. We'll discuss about it when we sit in the tent in the evening, leisurely. Or maybe when the war is over, if both of us we are alive, we can discuss about it. So it looks like that this is something which is not connected with the day-to-day life. Yes, Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, Adhyatma, Adhiyajna, and all these things, how are they connected with the day-to-day life? Excepting one thing, that Kim Karma, Adi Kim Karma, that's what he asked. Kim Karma Purushottama. So that means, say, what is karma? Yes, it's okay. Karma is something that can be connected. But all the other things to be superfluous in the war field. But then Krishna valued this question, what Arjuna asked. When Krishna valued that question, it always indicates that it must be having value from the point of view of day to day life, from the point of view of war Arjuna is facing. So, therefore, in the war context also it is useful, which means basically it must be useful in the context of our normal, simple human life. And it is not just only useful at the point of view of human life, because at the end of it, prayana kale chakatam jyoyosi yatatmabhi. That means it is something which shapes our conduct in this life so that when we leave this body, when we depart from this body, it is something that helps us to go further where we are. That means to say we are not the body now, but we are somebody who is housed in the body. When we go out, we are helped by this particular understanding of Adibhuta Adidaiva Adhyajna. So this is what the idea that it gives. That means to say basically in this life, if it is something that you can see that these things are in the war field, it must be definitely there in our day-to-day life. Therefore, we should sanction Krishna giving answer to these things, and let us try to examine the answer from the point of view of our simple daily life and Adhyatma Sadhana, spiritual journey. So now Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Krishna gives the answer. Aksharam Brahmaparam Swabhavaha Adhyatma Muchyate Bhuta Bhava Udbhavakaraha Visargaha Karma Sangitaha. So this is something which is very extraordinary answer that he gives, particularly of these thing of this question. Param Brahma is Aksharam. That simple, very important idea that we always nurture that idea. That means to say, Param Brahma, that means Supreme Brahman, is something which is Aksharam. That means it is eternal. It's always there. Ksharamite Nasti, where uh, Avinashi, Satchidananda, Ghana Paramatma, this is what we say. This is what is Brahman. That can be all right. But then he says, Swabhava Adhyatma Muchyate. Now, this is something which is really very fascinating in the sense that your own nature, Swabhava, is that what you are originally, not influenced by anything from outside. Swabhava Adhyatma Muchyate. So, Adibhuta Adidaiva Adhyatma. Of that, Adhyatma is your own being, your own nature. You are that Adhyatma. It is such an assuring answer that Krishna gives to Arjuna that, hey, in the war field that you are fighting, whatever may be the result of the war, whatever may be the idea, that your very nature itself is your swabhava, itself is Adhyatma. And Adhyatma, we think we equate it to spirituality. That means to say, your very nature itself is spiritual. It's such a great assurance. But only thing is that we need to really work for that, look for that, recognize our nature. It's like the way when Swami Vivekananda said at the Parliament of World Religions that each soul is potentially divine. We are divinity ourselves. What a wonderful assurance that Vivekananda has given. That's exactly the way that here also that Krishna says that Swabhavaha Adhyatma Muchyate. And then now he comes the idea of Karma Sangitaha, and whatever that is supposed to be the what we collect in the form of karma, what we do, the form of karma, karma sangita. What is that? Bhuta bhava udbhavakaraha visargaha. Uh, Wherever that there is something which is um, bhuta bhava udbhavakar. That means to say there is a feeling of humanness, the feeling of oneness, the feeling of divinity, the feeling of respect, bhuta bhava. uh, in anything that is there, activity that you do, you collect the activities that you do where activities are continuously suggesting you that you are dealing with the divinity or the God's creation. And that feeling, that love, bhuta bhava udbhavakaraha, karma sangitaha. And that's what is the idea that whatever that you do, that's what is karma. And adibhutam ksharo bhavaha. Now he comes to, there he talked about adhyatmam. Now he comes to adibhuta, ksharo bhavaha. That means to say, in this body here, whatever that we are, in this, whatever that has the idea of the birth and death quality that is there, this is what is adibhuta. Adibhuta is that what is called as birth and death quality that is there, adibhuta. And Purushascha Adidaivatam. This is another very important thing. who is living in this particular body, which is coming and going quality that is there. There's somebody who is living behind it, and around him this is there, which means to say this comes and goes, but there is something which continues beyond this body, and that is what is Purusha. Puri Ishaha Purushaha, that means somebody who is dwelling in that. And now one who is dwelling in that, whether it is you or me or anything, anybody, it's one and the same thing. That's what he calls it as Hiranyagarbha. So therefore, basically, that deep inside one who stays here is supposed to be the Brahman, and that Brahman, Hiranyagarbha, is something which is basically the Adhidaivatam. Now there is difference between this Brahman and this Hiranyagarbha that he brings about. We'll see the difference, and it makes quite a significant idea what Prasnopanishad now gives. Adhiyajnaha ahameva atra dehe dehabhutambara. This mm, in all these dehabhutam, one who has this body, and in this sharira, and this body, dehabhutam, one who is holding this body in all these things, and aham eva, I am the Vasudeva, I am the God, aham eva adhiyajnaha. Adhiyajna is that me. Now, the concept here that Krishna tries to give is that every activity that's going on within us is in the form of yajna. In the form of yajna, activities are going on. And what is this concept of yajna brings about? In fact, whatever that is there, when he says that dehadari and dehabhrutamvara, dehe, aham eva adhiyajna, it means in all the creation that is there, whatever the activity going on behind is adhiyajna. Now, yajna is a very beautiful concept that we have. That is, you offer yourself in this yajna. You are surrendering yourself in this yajna, so that what happens, this continuation of this creation takes place. A very simple example is that the seed has to completely surrender itself, destroy itself, so that the plant comes up. Seed does not know what's going to come up, but then seed offers itself so that the plant comes up. Similarly, the firewood offers itself completely. It becomes an ashes. And then in the process that the fire comes up. This is what is the idea of kalpana, of yajna. So adhiyajna, I am that adhiyajna. That means whatever that activity that is going on in this creation, it is nothing but the divine activity that is going on within that. So now there are two things that are there. One is the activity that's going on, and that's what is adhyajna, and that's also what we know. We created by the prana. Prana is the one which is continuously acting. And second thing is that it is the adhyajna on one side, and the other side is the Purusha. That means one who is driving these things within, and that's what is Hiranyagarbha. So now these two things are there within us. One is the Purusha, Hiranyagarbha, and the other is the the God divinity, and that's what is Adhyajna, is doing an activity, and Deha Bhrutamvara. So, and then further he says that Antakale cha mameva Swaran Mukta Kalevaram Yaprayaj Samadbhavam Yatri Nathastat Samshaya. One who recognizes this, realizes this, feels that, lives that, Antakale cha, at the time of death, or when he is continuously in that particular feeling that this is nothing but the yajna, adhyajna that is going on, and adhyajna of the divinity that's going on within and out. One who has that kind of a view, Antakale cha mameva, Smaran Vaktva Kulaiparam, when he gives his body, Yaprayati Samadbhavam Yatinath. Such a person will reach me. This is what Krishna gives in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Adhibhuta, Adhyajna, Adhyatma, Adhidaiva, and Adhyatma, these concepts that he brings about. Now, let us see what is that Prashnopanishad has to offer. But before we go to Prashnopanishad, that he gives us another idea. Anyway, whatever that is going on here in this world, everybody is doing, whether he knows it or not, whether we think about it, whether we read. But this is something which is going on all the time, and we may not even know what is going on. But in spite of it, this is what is going on. As I said, the seed does not know what is the journey happening. Similarly, the river does not know what the journey is happening. It goes and merges itself into the ocean, and there is no identity of the sea, of the river that is there anymore. Once it meets with the ocean, it's gone. But then this is something which is going on in the same way, continuously, all the time. It is something which is happening. So that the creation, that is what is happening, whether you know it or not, or whatever, that is the way it is happening. But then what happens is that when finally he gives one idea, that somebody who has understood this and applies this is a person, he definitely reaches me. Now, the before we go to the Sutra, in the fifth query, he says that यद्ये कामः अत्र oh, before we go, षड्भ्य सत्यकाम पप्रच्छ सयोः वै तद्भगवन् मनुष्येषु प्रयाण अन्तम् ओङ्कारम् अभिध्यायीत कथमं वावत तेन लोकं जयतीति. How they cross these lokas, these various worlds, as with the help of Omkara. So that means now it brings about this Om. Now you see that the parallel here, like what we have seen Omkara, Jagrata, Swapna, Sushupti, Om as the way that you say vibrations at the lower, middle, and upper chakras and all those things. We have seen all those things here also. Similar application is there for these things, like Om, Akara is supposed to be Adibhuta, Ukara is Adidaiva, and Makara represents the Adhyatma. So therefore, and then the beyond that silence, whatever that is there, is Brahman. So these things are applied in the case of Om also in this fifth Prashna of the Mandukya Upanishad, which is the Satyakama. He brings about this particular idea. So let us see how he works on that. Not only that, it is something which is practically we need to understand that and relate to our day-to-day life. Tasmai sahovacha etadvai satyakamaha परम च ब्रह्म यत ओंकार तस्मात् विद्वानेतै येन एव आयतनेन एकतर manveti. Now here what happens is that as last time that I was telling that Omkara is something which represents manifest to unmanifest. So, and that is the reason why in Mandukya also that it is that the idea of Avum belongs to the world experience, and then beyond that we have the fundamental experience, fundamental being aspect is there. From the doing to being, one thing which continues from the doing to being is what is the Sankara. That's what we have seen. Here also he says, Param cha aparam cha brahma yat onkaraha. So one is called as Parabrahma and the other is Aparabrahma. Aparabrahma is a manifest world outside. Parabrahma is something which is beyond the manifestation. So Omkara consists of this Paramcha, Aparamcha Brahma. Both these things are there. Tasmat Vidvanete Enaiva Ayatanena, by taking the shelter of this Etaram Anveti. So how one reaches this? This is what is the Pipalada is trying to reply to Satyakama. So yad Omkaram yad Akaramatra Abhidhyayita Tenaiva Samvedita Taha Turnameva Jagatyam Abhisampadyate tam rucho manushya upanayante na tatra tapasa brahmacharyena shraddhaya sampanno mahamanam anubhavati. Before we go to this Prashna, we see that in the beginning, when they come to Pippalada says, Samvatsaram Samvatsataha, do all these things. That's what is Brahmacharyena Tapasa, Shraddhaya Brahmacharyena Tapasa. You do all those things. So that means to say that when you do these things and come here, then only that you can see that the benefit of these things, benefit of going to a deeper and higher level. And this is what he brings about here. Oh, yat akara matra abhidhyayit. Now here abhidhyana, he brings about that akara matram abhidhyayita. When you do the abhidhyana of akara matra, satenaiva samvedita purnam. When you say that abhidhyana, it is like, it is like the way that we have what is called as the sadhana has aspect, what is supposed to be the upasana. That means you are merged in that. You are one with that, you are merged into that. So it is something which is not that you are chanting ah, you are singing ah, but you become that ah yourself. You become that ah yourself. That means to say that it is something that is um, it's like you are being. Hmm? Jagatyam abhisampadyate, and this is what is basically manushyalokam upanayante sat tatra tapata brahmacharyena sadhya sampanno mahimanam anubhavati. This is what about the manushyaloka. It is a wakeful state, like what we said in the wakeful state. This is about manushyaloka. Idea of manushyaloka is that this world where we interact, we have experience, common experience. I have experience, you have experience. It's like in the wakeful state. What is the importance of wakeful state? The importance of wakeful state is that whatever that we experience in the wakeful state world is something which is mutually exchangeable, interchangeable, understandable. That means it is a Vaishvanaraha, it is connected to the whole world. That's what is the way that we have this wakeful state experience. So, samucho manushyalokam upanayante. So, therefore, basically, we are in the world which is supposed to be the uh, tam mrucho lok manushya lokam upanayante. This is what is the mrucho ruchaha tam ruchaha. Rucha is that Rigveda. It comes from Rigveda. All the rucha is what you are connected with the what is supposed to be the basic fundamental laws of this world, laws of this universe that is there, common to all of us. That means to say, like for example, fire burns. You don't ask the question why fire burns, because that very nature of fire is to burn. And water flows downwards, it's the nature of the water to flow downwards. This is what is basically the nature's laws of the world and which is common to all. And there's something which is common to all. This is what is Rigveda. So essentially, that which is connected with the Rigveda and which is about the Manushloka, that is the world outside, and the world of a man, upanayante, and then he comes to that, and there, tapasa brahmacharya. Now, what happens with this? When you be in this world, there are two ways that you can be in this world. One way we be in this world is that you take whatever that advantage that you can take from this world. Come what may, beg, borrow, steal, and all that, you live. And this is one way that the people live, where basically that they become greedy, they become interested in the short-lived happinesses, and that's what they take. Or that they have the values and then they think that their values are the supreme and they try to impose their values on the others. So that becomes basically that the whole activities self-centered. You can be totally self-centered and do this activity. Now, second thing is that again that you can be in this world not being self-centered. That means to say you do not just be with yourself, but you see that the whole you connect with the whole world outside. Manushya Loka. That means to say your whole approach is not just only yourself, but to see that how you and the world are connected together that you go. Which is where basically that now what happens is that where there is supposed to be anyaya, that means there is no morality, that's one level, selfless, whatever name that you take it. It may be in the name of God, it may be in the name of prophet or whatever it is, that you might live an un uh, uh, immoral kind of a life. This is one level. The second level is that I don't want to listen to anything, but I listen to myself to see that how I can integrate with the others. This is what is basically the moral life that we take up. This is the second level in this world that we live. In fact, that's what Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Atmaupamyena sarvatra sarvam tamai pakshati. That's what is the next level that he says that if somebody does to me, what do I feel? I feel okay, then I will do to the others. But if somebody does to me, I feel bad, I don't want to do to the others that kind of a thing. If somebody points out, I might have done a mistake, but if somebody points out that mistake that I do it in a particular way, I feel hurt. Then I should also not try to give that way to the others. So this is another way. This is what is moralistic way that we live. The third way that we do is the way that you see that not only that I live in this world, but I recognize that I am only for a short period of time here, but then the samishti is something which is there for a longer period of time. I do something so that for the society to take care of it. I don't even think of God or anything like that. But I see that this Vaishvanara is something which is extending. Like, for example, this river is flowing, and pick up water from a small little portion of a river, and I take bath or whatever that I do with that river. That small little portion, it belongs to me. But I do not do in this river in such a way that okay that this part of the river I keep it clean, I take care of it, but not the rest of the river. No, the river is continuously flowing whether you are not there or not beyond you, both in terms of now and also later. Therefore, I do not want to pollute the river by whatever may be the possibility that is there. So this way, when I do it, this is what is basically I rise above myself to the level of Vaishwanara. This is where I recognize we have this idea called as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is one unit, and then I do something to the world outside so that I contribute to the world. So this is what is dharma. So please see that these are three levels. One level is the level where I become self-centered, selfish. I don't even care for any moral values. And second thing is I become moral. I care for the others in the moralistic way. But then the third level is I go one step beyond. It's not just only that mutually that I try to create this kind of moralistic standard, but to see that I create a universal moralistic standard. That's what is dharma. So therefore, if you have this idea of brahmacharyena and tapas shraddhaya, see this shraddha is something which is taking you beyond yourself. And tapasa brahmacharyena shraddhaya. Tapasa means basically that you don't want to take the easy way, but you would like, if it is supposed to be something which is with the problem, that you take up that problem way because that it has these components, these two components that is there. One is called as brahmacharya, that means God activity. And second thing is shraddhaya, that means there is shraddha in that. There is one serial that came, somebody was recollecting that, and Satyameva Jayate. In that, there is a farmer who used to use the fertilizer and chemicals for the farms to develop that. and he showed actually the whole farm. And then one small little bit about an acre land, he put a fencing, and then he was growing the same crop here. And he asked, that interviewer asked him that, what is this? He said, this is for our house, for our consumption. And what's the difference between that and this? Why don't you take that? No, there we use the fertilizer, we use the chemical and all that. Here we don't use the chemical. Here we would like to do it without chemical, we try to grow it. Why? Because the simple thing is chemicals poison us. I mean, you mean to say that the chemicals do not poison the others? No, but then there is profit in that. See, your profit is more important than the damage that you are causing to the people. How subtly that the people do this. That means to say, for me, it is something different. For others, it is something different. So rise above that level. Therefore, that everybody will have a crop which is without chemicals. I don't care for that my losses are there. I do not get the return much more than what it legitimately gives, but without using the chemicals. And then I would go for that. So this is what is the first level. But then beyond that, you go much more than that, saying that I try to spread this idea to the whole community, develop the whole thing. There are people who have done that. We have such examples where they have gone beyond that. This is what is Dharma. So the first one is called as moral, the second level is called as Dharma. Dharma is translated in English as righteous, but the concept of Dharma, which the Indian philosophy gives, righteous does not give that. It's much more than that. That means I may not have it, but I will give it to the others. I don't have to give it, but then I still give it. This is what is the way that Dharma is there. So when this is possible, is that when you have Shraddha. Shraddha is something where your perception is expanded from the simple level to the cosmic level. So therefore, these three things are tapasa, brahmacharyena, shraddhaya. When you have these things, then it will help you to see that something beyond. So this akara, the a, the first syllable, which represents the adibhautika, which is supposed to be about the body, about my body, what my being, and that's what is ksharo bhavaha. Very clearly, I see that this is what in Bhagavad Gita we have seen, adibhutam ksharo bhavaha. So that means it has got the kshara bhava. That means I die. I do not live long. Yes, 70, 80, 100 years that we live, this has got a short life. But in this short life, what I do is something which is beyond kshara into akshara. It helps me to go to the akshara. This is something which is very important. So, tatra tapasa brahmacharyena shraddhaya, when we do that, sampanno mahimanam anubhavati. This mahimanam, this is something which is beyond that you can experience. You have the satisfaction because that it reached many others. This is where the whole idea, what we call it as sacrifice. Here it is, I mean, sacrifice means I'm giving away something. But in Indian concept, it's not that really sacrifice, but it is something that you have expanded yourself and you see that vision of that. This is what is the idea that you do, that you go beyond kshara into the akshara sthiti. And that's what is the idea. Mahimanam anubhavati. That's what is this akshara akara gives us. So a represents adibhuta. Adibhuta is a. अथ यदि द्विमात्रेण मनसि संपद्यते सो अंतरिक्षम यजुर्भिः उन्नीयते सोमलोकम स सोमलोके विभूतिम अनुभूतम punaravartate. Now, the simple thing is now a and u, this is what is the dvimatra. Atha yadi dvimatrena manasi sampadyate. When you are able to merge your mind into this dvimatra, that means totally you are doing the idea of what is called as the uh, sadhana or the upasana that you do, dvimatrena, that means to say the wakeful and the dream, and that's what is from the Mandukya point of view. But here, I do, when both these things that you do, yadi dvimatrena manasya sampadyate, that means it's beyond a, it goes into u, and then when both these things again sampadyate, shraddhaya, and brahmacharyena, and also that with when you go this way, antariksham yajurbihi niyate samalokam. That means to say, when you go to beyond the wakeful state into the dream state, or your mind goes into the level where it is not just whatever that you see, but it is beyond that, whatever that your dream state or the inner state also can represent. And that's what is antariksham. Here, a person goes into what is called as space, antariksham. He is not just only at the matter level, but he goes to the next level. That's what is space. And ukara, when a and u put together, a, u, when both these things that you merge yourself in that, you do the upasana, you try to uh, you try to internalize these things, then naturally that you are in connection with what is called as Yajurbhihi. This is what is Yajurveda. There it is Rigveda, it is Yajurveda. Now, Yajurveda mantras, they're all the mantras which are talking about the various gods and goddesses who are blessing us with various things that are there. In fact, why it is like that? It is because this Akara and Ukara, both these things that you see, wakeful state and the dream state, as far the Mandukya Upanishad is concerned, Jagrata and Swapna, in both these things that we have our sensory organs functioning. You see here, you see there also. You hear here, you hear there also. That means to say all the sensory organs are there. Now, sensory organs, when you look at it, here, whatever that is there outside, it is a sensory organ. But what is there inside, the sensory organ will not go there. But what happens is that the functioning of the sensory organ is going there. Now, let me give you little more detail about this aspect of it. That is, mind has capacity of all these things. Mind can see, mind can hear. The process of seeing, that's what is basically the tanmatra, and the process of seeing when it comes outside, and that is what becomes the eyes. See, eyes are only the external manifestation of, or that point where it is triggered. That means to say, the eyes become very sharp, concentrated aspect of the seeing aspect of it. Seeing is wide, seeing is wide, but then eyes are limited. Eyes are focused. That means to say, by the time it comes to the eyes, that means it has already shrunk. Whereas behind that, the seeing ability is something which is wider. Or in other words, that the eyes are, if it is 1%, the seeing aspect is 1,000,000%. That's why we call it as Deva. The seeing aspect that is supposed to be one of the gods. Hearing aspect is God. So we represent all these things to the gods. So it has an ability to create it, an ability to interact. So therefore, that those things are there in the form of the divinity. And in fact, that you can see that in another Upanishad, Kena Upanishad also, the discussion goes on. The Rishi, he comes to person, he says that, "Hey, come on, stop seeing." He closes his eyes and says, "No, I didn't ask you to close your eyes. I asked you to stop seeing." But the seeing continues. Seeing does not depend upon eye. The seeing is something which is much bigger than the eye. Eye is a very limited kind of a thing. And eye can easily be influenced, whereas seeing is something which is behind. Therefore, seeing is representing the God. I represents human. So manifested world is I, and then behind that unmanifested great reality that is there is the seeing aspect, that's what we say God. So all these things are same way that we are made out of the water in the body, but the water in the body is limited. But then when you go back, the whatever the content of water that's there, we are connected with the same ocean, the water that is there in the universe. So therefore, basically, that's what is the bigger aspect of it, Deva. So therefore, that Ukara represents this whole Devata aspect of it, Deva aspect of it, and that's what basically that our dream world is created. Dream world has capacity to create because it's God's who created, and then Manas mind is supposed to be is the Indra who created all these things. Our mind creates wonderful patterns in the dream. Not only a wonderful patterns in the dream, but also when you are very seriously in the form of bhakti, movement, surrender to the God, and that your surrender aspect of it, your mind can create all these gods and goddesses, all these things that are there, so that you enjoy that huge area of expression of experience that you have. So therefore, the wakeful state and the dream state are the akara and mukara together, and this area where you have all these things is called as the somaloka. So therefore, he says that yatra dimatrena manasi sampadyate. So antariksham is a space. It's not limited; it is unlimited, and Yajurveda, that is way Yajurbi Unniyate Somalokam. And this is supposed to be Somalokam. Sasomaloke Vibhutim Anubhutam uh, Punaravartate. So now the Somaloka is something where it is Anubhuti. That means you are in that particular experience of that Somaloka. It is the Somaloka which is basically you created yourself, and that comes into the manifestation, the world outside. Like, for example, 9 months that you are in the mother's womb, are you not building up gently, slowly, little by little, before you come into the world outside? So, therefore, the Somaloka has all these things. Not only that before manifestation, whatever that is there, but including your own gods and goddesses, all those things that are there, and all these things are based on the feeling that you have. That's what is bhavana. Bhavana creates this particular somaloka. And U, by the time you come to the U, you come to the heart chakra where the bhavanas are there. Now, bhavana and the matter, the body, put together created the somaloka, and there you have all these. And this is what is Yajurveda. Now, look at the Yajurveda mantras. All the Yajurveda mantras are about various gods and goddesses, and you are treating them as as part of your human being, your being only, and then you do all kinds of yajna, everything. You constantly feel the God's presence within you. So therefore, basically, when once you have this, then it gives rise to Yajurveda, and Yajurveda ideas that you understand when you are doing the upasana with I and U, when these two things are there. But then what happens? All these visions, all these perceptions, all these ideas, yajnas that you do it. There are so many, and in this, it's not only that it is the mind, but it's not only the senses and the mind, but senses and mind use various panchabhutas that are there. So even the panchabhuta, their um, tanmatras are also part of this Yajurveda, part of this particular world. So Somaloka. So Somaloka has already earth, fire, water, all those things that their elements are there, and then they come into the manifest world. Again, whatever that manifests is so little compared to what is there behind, ready to manifest. So, but then what happens? All these things they come manifest and then again go back. So therefore, that there is a punarjanma is possible in this punaravartate. That means basically, as long as that I and who are there, only these two are there. That means to say, the Adibhuta and Adidaiva. This is what is Adibhuta, and Akara and Ukara is Adidaiva. Adidaiva is the area where all these gods and goddesses, all these creative uh, ideas are there for creation. Anything that is there in Adidaiva is planning and scheming for the sake of birth, coming back into the world outside. So if you do the sadhana or the upasana, I do, then punaraim, the punaravartate vibhutim anubhuya. You have such a wonderful experience of creativity which comes from that. And then rebirth continues because these two are again connected with the sensory organs and the matter. The senses are always the things which connect with the matter. However, they may be gods, but then they are connected with the matter. That's the reason why all our yajnas, they always say that there is sakama. That means that there is kama. In fact, you go to the temple, you offer the prayers and all that, they say, they have to say this particular thing that it is for the sake of ayur, aragya, buddhyatam, etc., etc. That is what you do for. Wonderful. There is no wrong, nothing wrong about it. That's fine. We had uh, we had always respected the world creation outside. So therefore, that is something which. Yaha punaretam trimatrena. Now, aum, when you take, so therefore, basically, au, when you put together, that means to say it goes to Somaloka, and then Somaloka is the head, and that's what is basically the next level which will help us to go into. So you see that the aspect is basically that the Dharma Granthas and the U aspect background is supposed to be Puranas, the gods and goddesses, all these Dashavatara, all these things at that level. And therefore, that again, there when you are actually lost in the case of Brahmacharya and tapas, and also that ekagrata, when you do all those things, then you do, then you go to the third level. And what is that third level? And that's what is avu. So, yaha punaretam त्रिमात्रेण ओम इत्येतत् अनेवा अक्षरेणेन परम पुरुषम अभिध्यायीत स तेजसी सूर्ये संपन्नः तथा पादोदर सव्यच विनिर्मुच्यते मुच्यते एवं सह वै पाप्मानं विनिर्मुक्तं स समाभिर्नीयते ब्रह्मलोकं स एतस्मिन् जीवधानं परात्परं Purisham, Purushamikshate Tadeti Shloko Bhavati. So, now what happens when it comes to this Trimatrena? See, naturally, the Dharma Granthas and then you go to the Puranas, that you can understand Puranas, you relate yourself with the Puranas, you relate yourself with all these yajnas, yagas, and all that, and then you go to the third level. And third level, where त्रिमात्रेण ओमित्येते अनैव अक्षरं परम पुरुषम अभिध्यायीत सतेजसी. So first one is basically that adi bhuta adidhaiva. This is what is adhyatma. Now purusham abhidhyayita. So now tejasi surya. You see, what happens is the deep sleep state. That means everything becomes one, merged into the causal, sthula, sukshma, and then merges into the causal state. The sun is the causal. The first one is sthula, the second one is sukshma, and this is what is the causal state. In the causal state, everything becomes one. In fact, at the sukshma level itself, that there is a subtle differences that is there. But when it comes to the sukshma, beyond that causal level, it's all one and the same thing. Like the way that in the dreams, the deep sleep state, just everything merges into that. So, yatha padadurastvacha vinirmuchyate evam havai sa papmana vinirmuktaha samabhi unniyate brahmalokam sayetasman. त्रिसो मात्रा मृत्युमत्यः प्रयुक्तः अन्योन्यसक्ता अनभिप्रयुक्ताः क्रियासु बाह्याभ्यन्तरमध्यसु samya. So here what happens is, let me read it. Again, he meditates on the highest Purusha with the help of this very syllable Om. By all these three martras, he becomes united with the bright sun. As a snake is freed from the skin, so he is the freed from all the sins. So where basically Rigveda, Yajurveda, and this becomes Samaveda. So it is therefore basically it is the Sama hymns to the world of Brahma. Now, what is the idea of Samaveda? It is something, Samaveda is for all the fine arts and all those things. That means to say, you go beyond the matter to something which is, you, you go something which is beyond the matter. So basically, the whole idea is to see that how you can transcend the matter. And that's what happens basically when you go to the Ahu, matter is always matter and it's gross and subtle, it is merged. And then the causal state, everything merges, and that's where basically it is the Sama hymns. Yajurveda, Rigveda, Yajurveda, and this is what is Samaveda. So in the Samaveda, basically that there is one thing which is all unit, everything has become one in one unity, and that's what basically this Aum that is there. But then when Makara, it's only so at the level of Sama, that means that basically that when you're in the deep sleep state, that there is no sense, there is nothing that is going with you, and you are in the heart level. The head level is the one where basically all the thinking, planning, scheming, right and wrong, good and bad, all these things are there. But the moment you come to the heart level, the sleep, deep sleep state, that's where basically all these differences are gone, and you are resting yourself in that. Uh, and this is what is Hiranyagarbha. The Makara, therefore, is the Hiranyagarbha. It is not yet Brahman. See, Hiranyagarbha is what is supposed to be the Brahman-like condition. This is what we normally we say that Paramatma is something which is the Brahman, and an individual has become Jivatma, and Jivatma is the Paramatma within the Hiranyagarbha. And when the moment that Hiranyagarbha out of which that Jivatma goes, then it becomes Paramatma. That means you are also the God at that point of time, but then you are within that limited portion of Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is basically, it is a garbha. It is like a seed of your own, and then you created your own. Now, the other day I was giving about the whole creation that Brahman that is there, which is all pervasive, there is only one single uh, entity from which everything comes up, and that becomes individualized. In Hiranyagarbha, this individuation is already has taken place. That's the reason why that individuation, Jivatma, when I'm in touch with my Jivatma, it does not mean that everybody is in touch with the Jivatma. Everyone's Jivatma is separate, individual, but then experience is same. That's why we say that the dream experiences may be different, but the dreamless sleep experience for everybody is the same. This is what is Hiranyagarbha. So we touch that Hiranyagarbha, and then independently that we are there, and that we have that experience of Hiranyagarbha, we live that. This is what is the third one. So Aum, third one, and that's what everybody goes through. These three aspects of it, whether you know it or not. The moment that you go deep sleep state, you are reaching that state. That's what is Hiranyagarbha. Everybody goes there. But a person who is a sadhaka, a person who is doing this sadhana of this, until this Hiranyagarbha also, that there basically that coming and going quality is there because that there is no sadhana behind it. Hiranyagarbha is something that you reach as a normal human being that you can reach. Many times that many people have that experience also, even otherwise also. It's not only in the sleep, but even otherwise also people reach that experience. Wow, it is something like that they just become silent, no activity is going on. It just becomes silent, and It becomes like the experience of deep inner poise, quietude. Very relaxing, very satisfying, and very fulfilling. Wonderful. There is nothing which is there hanging on you. But again, the samskaras that are there will pull you down. And all those things can once again come up when you wake up. So only thing is if you have tapasa, brahmacharya, shraddhaya, when these things are there, naturally then what happens is that from the third state you go to the fourth state. And that fourth state is possible only that fourth is it's not a state, and that's what is Brahman. So that is what it says that one who goes to that is a person who experiences in two shlokas त्रिस्तो मात्रा मृत्युमत्यः प्रत्युक्त अन्येन सत्ता अनभिप्रयुक्ताः क्रियासु बाह्याभ्यन्तरमध्यमस्तु Samyak prayuktasu nakampateya. So the three matras which are employed separately are mortal, finite. All these three things are in the finite, mortal, and when they are strung together, they are now what happens is independently wakeful, dream, deep sleep state. Uh, so they are independent, they are fine. So you go to those experiences and then you come back and then be with various states. This is what normally that we do. Similarly, that when you look at from the different angle, that adibhuta we do the activities and adidaiva activities, that means the yajna, yagas and all that we do separately. And then we go to the sleep state and that's also separately that we do it. All these three things are that we are doing separately, independently. As long as they are independently, they are not connected with each other. That's what normal people do it. So therefore, that when they are doing these things, there is a little there's a little progress that's happening. A little progress that's happening. Experience the progress to which that happens is that the amount of satisfaction that yes, I did this work, so I'm satisfied. I did that work. Because they are independent. That means to say that akara does not lead to kara, or in the sense that adibhuta that I'm doing does not lead to adidaiva, which means basically that I'm only following what is called as the shastras, which are keeping me into the moral level. So I do the moral level shastras and all that. A lot of people do that. They're wonderful. They're very good. In fact, 90% of the people are like that. Even the people who are immoral also, out of this 90%, there may be at least about 15-20% of the people out of fear of falling down that they keep doing something which is called as moral. But then they stuck at the moral level. They do not go beyond. But then somebody who takes to the next level, that is dharma aspect of it, is the person who go to the next level. So that means they have integrated I and U together. They have not separately kept it. They have integrated these two. That means the wakeful state and the dream state they have incorporated. Or in other words, they have united that Adibhuta and Adidaiva. Both these things are included in that activities. When the Adidaiva is the Yajna, Yagas and all that, like that, whatever that Homa and things that are, some people are very clear about that. They do all those things. But then only these two things are there. And they have kept the other thing, the third matra, separately. They have not included that. So that means they are good, satisfied at that level. But then the people who want to go to that silence, that means to say the sthula and sukshma, and then want to go to the causal, and these are the people who join this makara. All right, makara takes you to that causal level, but that also that they just keep it independently, separately. But one who takes all these three things joined together is Aum. When you do that, then you see that all these things are merges into who merges into whom, and everything merges into silence. And such a person is the person who goes to Tristomatra Mrityumatyaha Prayuktaha Anyonya Sakta Anaviprayuktaha. So Kriyasu bahyabhyantara madhyam. Bahya, abhi, antara, madhyama. So these are the three things that are there. The gross and gross matra, madhya matra, and antara matra. Samyak prayuktasku nakampate. Such a person takes this consciousness deeper inside and beyond these three. And that's what's the fourth level that he goes to. So therefore, that don't don't stop at the level of being moral. Don't stop at the level of akara. Don't stop only at the level of ugara. Don't stop at the level of doing all the yajna, yagas, and karma. And then that means it's the Rigveda to Yajurveda. But so try to go beyond that continuation into the third stage, and that's what is the deep sleep state, or the sense that where Yajurveda and Samaveda takes to that level. When you go beyond, then when you take continuous, that will push you into that fourth state. And that fourth state is the way Rugbhiretam Yajurbhi Antariksham Samabhiryat Yat Kavayo Vedayante. Rug, Yaju, Sama, all these things through this Rug Mantra Devata, he reaches this world, led by the Yajur Mantra Devatas. He touches the world of the mains, Sama Abhirveda, and then guided by the Sama verses, he reaches the Brahmaloka. Be, by means of the syllable Om, this wise one reaches also that with the quiet, undecaying, deathless, fearless, and supreme. Unless that you reach that fourth state, you don't have this idea of Shantam, Ajam, Amritam, Abhayam Param cha iti. Yes, there is satisfaction in yajna, there is satisfaction in meditation, being in the silence, that is fine. But then that satisfaction, that state when you are there, when you come out of it, you are totally not free from that. Free from what? Free from the ideas of whatever call as the decay, death, fear, these things that you are still holding on to that. Once you cross that, then you go to the supreme. And that's what is the seventh mantra that he brings about. That Athainam Sukesha Bharat Pratya Bhagwan. Oh, that we go to the sixth mantra. The fifth mantra, the fifth question stops at that level. Now you see that how the question is taken up in the way that whatever that was there we created as prana is a cause for the beginning. The prana itself is the sun and all that. Now you take that prana further towards this level of what is called as jagrata, swapna, sushupti, and you take in the form of adhibhuta, adhidaiva, and adhyatma. And then he says that Swabhavaha Adhyatma Muchyate, at that level of the Hiranyagarbha, or at the level of that Jiva Mukta, that uh, Jivatma, you are that. So, what is the difference between the Hiranyagarbha? What is the between Hiranyagarbha and the Jivatma, and also Paramatma? And that's what is the level that we reach with the help of these things. That's what the idea of Prasnopanishad in the fifth shloka. Fifth Prashna, the Sukesha asked that, and this journey is indicated by this journey. So let us try to, whenever we chant our Om, we also recognize that what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, what is the fifth Prashna that is asked in Prashnopanishad. Let's keep both these things together and work with that idea, this thing, Adhibhuta Aksharo Bhava, and where he says that Swabhavaha Adhyatma Muchyate, or in that state of Adhyatma, and that will take you towards that Brahmasthiti. So Adhyatma practice is that which will take you to the Brahmasthiti. But in order to go to the Adhyatma practice, that's what is the causal state. And before that, we have the Stula and Sukshma, they are there. Now, all these three things, all that the activity that's going on, is all because of the, he says that this is what is Adhiyajna. It's all nothing but the yajna activity that's going on. Think of it that it is not that you are doing, but the Vasudeva, the Krishna, that Ahameva, Adhyajnam Ahameva, he says that he is the one who is caused behind this Adhyajna. So this surrender aspect, something becomes very useful when you take up that way and then proceed. So after this fifth Prashna, let's go to the sixth one. That's another very interesting aspect that brings about almost like summing up all these things that what we have so far done in the five shloka, questions that are there, and in the sixth sloka question, it sums up the answer for all those things. That's the end of Prashna Upanishad. We'll stop it here. We'll continue the discussion next week. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.